President Franklin D. Roosevelt had just led America out of the Great Depression and into a time of isolation from World War II. During that time, America was recovering, but still making economical and scientific progress. One example of this is the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was created in 1941 and was a group of scientists racing to produce the first atomic bomb. Its isolationist views caused America to stay out of World War II, but to still aid the Allies by sending supplies. However, that all changed on December 7, 1941.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination of our people, we will gain the inevitable triumph, so help us God. I ask that the Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire.
After the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, America's atomic program began to expand more rapidly. The Manhattan Project's new atomic weapon was finally ready and was used in the Trinity test at a remote desert in New Mexico. The results of the tests gave scientists a general idea of what they had created. The success of the Trinity test brought the world into a new age, the age of atomic energy. America was at war against the Axis powers, Germany in Europe, and Japan in the Pacific. The Allied armies were making good progress against Germany in their campaign towards Berlin, and America was destroying the Japanese forces from island to island in the Pacific. However, thousands of troops were dying, supplies were thinning, and morale was low.
It was devastating, and it had gone on a long time, and our troops were weary. As the example of my father, who knew when they started teaching him judo that he'd been in the European front, that he was going to have to go to Japan.
President Roosevelt died on April 12, 1945, and his vice president, Harry S. Truman, took office. When he took office, Truman was told about the Manhattan Project and what they developed. Around this time, the war was slowing down as Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945. However, Japan was still being stubborn and fighting to the end. Truman wanted to use the weapons developed in the Manhattan Project against Japan. On August 6, 1945, President Truman sent a B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, from an airbase on Tinian Island. It was carrying the uranium bomb, Little Boy, and was heading towards the Japanese city of Hiroshima.
It would probably been easier to rationalize given the bombing of Pearl Harbor. That was a major source of fear and anger and calling for the need for retribution against the Japanese. So that was probably another thing that rationalized the dropping of the bomb.
The world will note that the first atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, a military base. we won the race of discovery against the Germans. We have used it in order to shorten the agony of war, in order to save the lives of thousands and thousands of young Americans. We shall continue to use it until we completely destroy Japan's power to make war.
Truman calculated how many American and Japanese lives would have been lost if the war had pressed on. The bombs were there, and I think that nobody really realized how devastating it would be for generations.
Truman had made the decision to drop the atomic bomb. His other option was to invade Japan, and that could have led to up to 1 million dead American soldiers and 5 million Japanese deaths. Instead, he dropped the bomb, and there were no American casualties and less Japanese deaths.
It's a continued debate that's probably affected a lot by contextually what's going on in the United States at any given time period. For example, today, probably be more sympathy toward dropping the bombs than there would have been in the 60s, when there was a lot of anti-war sentiment toward the Vietnam War. But now we're kind of afraid of terrorism and having experienced devastation on our own soil, which was even more close to mainstream United States than the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Japan would still not give America an unconditional surrender, so on August 9th, the B-29 bomber nicknamed Boxcar launched from Tinian Island. It was carrying the plutonium bomb Fat Man and was heading towards the Japanese city of Nagasaki.
So the Japanese were fairly insistent, but I think that if it had dragged on and on and on, I think the morale of our troops would have diminished.
The bomb dropped on Nagasaki had very similar effects as the one dropped on Hiroshima. America had told Japan that they would continue to use bombs of equal power if Japan would not surrender. Japan could not stand to see more death, so it offered America its unconditional surrender on August 15, 1945. World War II was over.
Possibility for anti-war sentiment, I think, would have increased had we not dropped the bomb and ended it right then and there. People were really tired of the war. Food rations. I mean, we felt it more than since then we've ever felt a war. We had to sacrifice more, so.
It is still debated today if the bombing was a success or a failure. Some argue that it was immoral and that it didn't allow Japan to surrender. Truman, along with many people, thought that the bomb was necessary to end the war and to do it with the least amount of casualties from both sides. He knew that Japan would continue to fight until the very end, so he saw that it was important to drop the bomb and to end World War II.